Yeah. So we don't ask him.
Has been busy.
This is all his show.
No, it always warms up.
It's been it's busy, dude. You know, we're hopping, dude.
You've been there since I've been there, man.
Uh,
Tell you, Chris, that was probably the best times of my life was there.
you know what? We're fun. I did that, dude, any day of the week.
Remember telling me was this road?
Good morning, all. Why don't we start this meeting? I'm Fred Hashimoto, and I'd like to call this meeting PSECC. In order.
Remember that one?
Did I do something wrong?
No,
I do.
we're missing the joke.
Is there a joke?
I don't
Who's it?
Anyway, thanks for coming. Roll call. I'll call out the organization, and if you would please say who you are and whom you represent, and if there's a proxy involved, let us know that, just so for the record, we know who is here specifically. So, Chair of Ops Board.
Here, Anthony Martinez, Corrales Fire Chief.
Santa Ana.
Here, Lieutenant Christopher Furnace with Santa Ana Police Department.
Member from Corrales, I guess that's me.
Yes.
Member from Bernalillo.
Chief Chris Doyle, Burnwell, please.
Thank you. And a member from Sandoval County.
President Jordan Waters, County Commission Chair.
Good, thank you very much. May I have an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Motion by Sandoval County, second by Bernalillo.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes of February 17th, 2026. May I have a motion for approval?
I'll motion for approval of the minutes. Anthony.
Second from Sandoval County.
Any discussion? I have some discussion. I think for the record, it's I think it's a good idea for the roll call, as we did today, to state a name, because just to state a county and organization is somewhat vague, and these are official minutes. So if we can make sure we get the names and put them in the roll call, that's just for the records. I had another comment that it was brought up by me that there was an issue with 911 calls. I've had 4 911 calls from my home phone that we didn't initiate, and I know Yvonne was going to look into this, and so maybe in the minutes it could be stated that I mentioned that there were some errant 911 calls from my home line, and Yvonne is going to look into that. So I'd like to add that to the minutes. One last thing is adjournment. The meeting was adjourned at 10:53. That's sort of before it even started. It started at 11, so maybe we ought to have adjournment at 11:53 instead of 10:53. We're a time machine. We can turn the clock back. Anyway, those are the only comments I had. Any other comments or? Okay, all in favor of passing the minutes of February what was it?
The 17th.
What was it? Where is it?
Right there.
Oh, there it is. February 17th. Please say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Fair, if I can interject.
Yes.
If we can get correct me if I'm wrong, if we can get a motion to get those minutes updated and amended per your recommendations for the meeting minutes to be done that way. So I move that we have I move that we amend the meeting minutes per your recommendation and vote on that
Okay. Any
as
second to
amended.
that? Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Good, okay, so
So who's
as
the-
amended,
So
Do we have so the motion was on me. Do we have a second? I need a second.
I'll second.
All right.
okay, so the motion passes, the meetings as amended will be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Next item, is FY 27 budget discussion. Yvonne, Eric, you gonna do this?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. You guys hear me okay? I'm gonna be helping present the budget today, and then I'll let Yvonne dig into a little bit more details as needed. And then moving forward, she'll ask for the next item and the request for the motion. Mr. Chairman and members, just for some historical perspective on this, last year when we first started this JPA, the SCRECC, to basically get the ball rolling, we had taken previous years' expenses and costs and dues, etc. We added 10% to get the ball rolling with the new SCRECC that was approved, and we were able to do a lot with that this past year. Moving forward, as we looked at the budget, some things we were able to bring down in the overall expense, and we'll talk about why. Other things, we recognize that there's going to be some additional costs moving forward. And again, if we have specific questions on some of this, Yvonne can jump in. But the biggest piece is going to be always our salary and benefits. That is probably the biggest chunk of the money as we look at the personnel costs on your kind of colorful page that you have in front of you. The very bottom purple of the first half is that personnel cost, excuse me, at 2.4 million. Closer to 2.4 million. That, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, or members of the board, is really a increase. I think we anticipated about a 4% increase, 5% increase for our staff, in addition to activating some positions. Right now, the assistant director position is vacant, and we have held that for salary savings, as well as two dispatcher positions that are vacant, that we have held for salary savings as well. The director, in conversations with her, if approved by you, that 2.4 million would reflect reactivating those positions and moving forward with those positions. As you can see, there's some significant decreases. Example, program development, capital outlay, etc. Those numbers came down substantially, and we'll talk about why we were able to do that with some of the state funding that we have. And then to basically balance the budget, we're looking at about a $3 million budget for next year. It looks like it's about a 4% increase across the board to all entities. Mr. Chairman, members, I know there's going to be discussion, and there is a desire for discussion to be had about how are we calculating these numbers. Again, historically, this was based on minutes used on the radio. I think we all agree that that's probably not the best path moving forward. However, we do not even have a year's worth of call data yet. We have about 7 months worth of data, give or take. And I think it would be fair to try to get a year's worth of data while exploring not just call volume, but other factors that may contribute to what this breakdown looks like long term. So it would be my recommendation and my request to the members today that we approve the budget with that 4% increase to keep the lights on, keep things running for the next fiscal year, so that Director Fox and her team can continue providing the services while we take the time as an operational group. The operation members can get together, the county can work with the operations group, the governance group, maybe come up with some different ideas, some different proposals, some different variables and metrics that we can look at to ensure that it is fair across the board moving forward. And we do that before the end of the calendar year. That way we kind of have a game plan moving forward well ahead of next year's budget presentation, so that we're all on the same page about what this looks like. And it's gonna have to be fair. And I think the biggest thing that we're gonna have to recognize is that some numbers are gonna go up, some numbers might come down, some numbers might be adjusted pretty substantially. However, what is fair? If there are entities that look at significant increases in the future, we may have to take that in small chunks along the way. We may have to understand that, recognize that, etc. However, I do believe, Mr. Chair and members, that that is a conversation for a little ways down the road. Today is really about that 4% increase. The members or the employees are on the next page. In addition to what you also have is a E911 program grant piece of paper. This is why we were able to reduce program development and capital pretty substantially. And Chief Martinez will comment on this or remembers this. This has been something we've been talking about for a long time. Yvonne and her team did a great job this year working with DFA. Basically, any cost we had, I believe we asked the state if they would just pay for it. I think we asked them basically for everything.
Yes.
And we continue to ask for that to the point where, and we do believe that this is this current year's budget for what we receive from the state. We anticipate this to be what it looks like moving forward. However, more might be able to be picked up. They've changed some legislation to where certain pieces of the CAD, I believe, are able to be picked up at this point moving forward. So we feel confident that we can reduce some of that program development and capital infrastructure costs and focus on salaries because the state is being so gracious in what they're able to pick up. That is, Mr. Chair and members of the board, that is a general overview, 30,000 foot overview. And myself and Director Fox will stand for any questions. And then we'll move on to the next item. One thing before I stop, I would actually like the next item to be a request to approve a preliminary, that word preliminary. Just because, you know, there's a couple months left. We might, I think we're like 95, 98% there. But if there's a last, you know, minor changes or something like that, we may need to do one more approval in June or something. But that would be my only request. And then I stand for any questions. Mr. Chair.
Okay, do we have a motion already in a second? I don't remember. Could we have
This is just part of, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to cut you off, Chairman. This was just.
This is just a discussion.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
okay, any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I appreciate some of the comments. I know Bernalillo, we are concerned with some of the cost sharing calculations, which has been brought up in the past. Maybe even looking at maybe a subgroup to come up with a new plan to pretty much come up with what we're going to cost each department and different alternatives. I kind of feel like we didn't get the best deal on that portion of the funding. And I know that was brought over from Rio Rancho, those numbers, which probably weren't accurate as well. So I just want to make sure that going forward, we come up with a better plan on cost sharing.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Anthony?
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, thank you. So looking at all this, the capital outlay I have a question on. So it says, you know, the 417 for current year 25, 26, and then 100,000. I following the capital outlay this year, I think you guys are awarded another capital outlay for the dispatch center. Is that reflected anywhere? Because I don't, unless it was like 400,000, I think.
Mr. Chairman, Chief Martinez, we were awarded some money for some additional expansions of the dispatch center. That, in addition to a GO bond that we have for communications related projects, we are going to be looking at starting design and architect of an expansion, basically classroom, some additional office spaces, et cetera. That's not reflected in here. It's part of the county's, legislative funding, basically. But we can add that to this for future reference so that you know exactly what is coming from that. But
And I just kind of goes back to, I like to see all the numbers. I like to see what's coming in, what's going out. I get it. We're just starting out. We don't have a lot of the information. I personally would like to see more detail, like, I think this is well prepared. I just like to see the ins and outs and, but I also would like to see future plans like the build out. I know the dispatch center needs to grow. And I think we need to have those conversations and make it, you know, kind of be ambitious and start talking about those like a 5-year plan. So we as entities, when we're out there and we're, you know, trying to campaign for our local entities for capital outlay, but we know it's on a plan and it's been discussed, and we can discuss that and try to help the center. So those are just my comments, Mr. Chair. Thank you. And I guess as we move forward, once we start getting some of the information, then maybe we, like the Bernalillo chief mentioned, we could look at the breakdowns. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I have a comment. Maybe if we could have some type of summary of activity during a period. So, you know, because budget depends on activity in a way, and it'd be nice to have some type of breakdown summary of calls, where they're from, what they're about, maybe how long they last, but just a summary of activity, so we get a sense of, you know, how this organization is really functioning.
Mr. Chair, to address all three of those points, I think what we can do, and I'm going to kind of look at Director Fox and Operations Manager to see if, I think we can do two things. One, can we run a quarterly call volume report? Basically, every quarter we just pick it, and then it just automatically goes out to the governance and ops groups.
Yep.
It'll be a total report broken up by agency, but that way everyone sees the different calls that are at least being dispatched by the agency. And I think that's something we can just kind of automatically create, right, to run.
Yes, we can make sure that we do that quarterly, and then we can do the call volume as well.
Perfect. And then I think to address Chief Martinez, I think what we can absolutely do similar is I can run a quarterly, basically expense and revenue report right out of our budgeting software and send that out quarterly. You know, regardless of the meeting schedule, we just pick a day, and every quarter we send it out at the end of the quarter. And that way you guys know what's coming in, what's going out, and where the different money is. We can absolutely make that happen. That's an easy thing to do. And then to Town of Bernalillo, I'd be happy if the group so chooses and so orders. I'd be happy to start that process of getting a subcommittee together and start looking at some different call volume options, if that's directed by the
Yeah,
governor.
sounds good. Who would be on that subcommittee?
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I obviously think anyone from the governance group would be should be on that, but also anyone that wants to participate from any of the operations boards, really anyone that pays into it, should have the ability to have a seat at the table and at least have a conversation. Ultimately, it'll be the governance board that makes the final decision. But in my opinion, anyone that contributes to this should at least have a seat at the table. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will start working on that, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion on this item?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Masterson, can you go over the personnel one more time? Is it supposed to be 2 telecommunicators and the assistant director, or is it just 3 telecommunicators, no assistant director for FY27?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So we have, it's the assistant director and 2 of the vacant on that. The first page where it breaks down the full-time salaries, overtime salaries, you'll see that there's the assistant director, and that is budgeted at the far right. And then there's 2 dispatcher positions that are budgeted as well for this year. Director Fox, I just want to make sure that I'm saying this correctly. We have 2 vacant.
We have 1 vacancy right now because she just resigned. So, but
we have
we're
2
reactivating. Yes.
I'm sorry, we have 2 frozen positions that are being reactivated.
Yes. And the assistant director as well. And then we have 1 telecommunicator vacancy currently.
Okay, so 2 unfrozen telecommunicators, 1 vacancy, and assistant director.
2 frozen, 1 vacant, and then the assistant director.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
You're good.
Okay.
When do we plan on using those?
The 2 frozen, we'd like to reactivate in July, and the assistant director. And then the one where we had the vacancy, her last day is this week. So once that is final, then we'll put out the job posting.
Okay, good.
To-
So we're going
to get it
2
covered.
more in July.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay.
You said July for that?
Yes.
For those 3?
Yes.
Any more discussion? Chief,
Sure. The IT support, can you discuss that? What is that or?
Mr. Chair, part of the kind of overall proposal that we did a year ago is we wanted to ensure that we had IT support 24/7, 365. In order to do that, that we built into the budget basically, I think it's 20% for 3 positions that goes from this JPA budget back into the IT department to help fund 24/7, 365 coverage for any member of the SCRECC. So that's what those numbers are. I'm sorry, SCRECC, the PSECC. Yeah.
And thank you, Mr. Masterson. Have a good day.
The PSECC, yes. That's what those
No,
numbers are.
thank you for clarifying. And that's more of a, I just wanted it on the record and I wanted to hear the service that that's providing, because in our meetings with dispatch, they have been providing a remarkable service to our agencies to make sure that the MDTs are functional and running. And I was really glad to hear this past meeting that it's available 24/7. And so I think it's fair. I think it's something that we definitely have to pay into to make sure that service doesn't go away.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
any more discussion? Moving on to the next item, a motion to approve a preliminary budget, FY 27. May I have a motion to approve the preliminary budget, please?
So moved by Sandoval County.
And a second?
I'll second. Carlos.
Any discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Open discussion among members. Open up the floor.
Since you're opening up to the floor,
Oh,
I'd like to jump back really quick, and I think Chief Stoyle's comments about how we're determining how to charge each one of our entities. I think it's an important discussion to have.
right.
I don't think we've really had that discussion at any point. I think one of the foundational issues to determine is what constitutes a billable call. There are agencies that'll do a lot of, safety checks or area checks. Do you get charged for calling in and saying, well, I'm going to be out 10/8 because I'm checking this vehicle, or I'm at lunch, whatever that looks like. In my opinion, you shouldn't be. I think it's actual dispatcher work needs to be defined, and when are they accessing those services? And that's a question for ops, because the governance board isn't out in the field, but it's also a question for governance, because it really needs to be about the call volume for each agency and fully defining what that billable call looks like. Because talking on the radio, to me, isn't about billing. It's about officer safety. It's about our firefighters' safety. It's about knowing where our resources are. And that shouldn't be a charged call just in and of itself. So my thoughts on the matter, it's about the governance board's definition of those calls. And we ought to be ready one way or the other to make those adjustments in our budgets. Okay?
I'm sort of new, obviously, but how did it happen in the past on Rio Rancho? It's just people laugh. It's not a joke. I don't know.
No, we're not laughing at the question. It's how it's charged is what we're laughing at.
And Mr. Chair, it mainly, and I wasn't part of developing that system, but it mainly came down to airtime use, the use of the radio. And I always felt like that was a dangerous approach to this, because it's not how much airtime on the radio you use, it's how much work our dispatchers do. I did something very similar to this when I was a county manager at Torrance County. Long story, it wasn't a JPA, but it was a county operated dispatch. And we, of course, were charging the various towns and villages for dispatching service. And we looked at it from a standpoint of call volume for each agency. And defining what that call really looked like was the core of what we tried to do. And we did it on a 5-year basis. So we would set it for 5 years because I was trying to create predictability within the budget. We would set it for 5 years and readjust every 5 years. We might want to do that more frequently, might want to do it annually, but we need to determine that within these discussions. It has to be a little deeper than just call volume itself. So it's also the period of time. I want to make it budget friendly for all of us, but more
Right.
importantly, it needs to be predictable. So this isn't a surprise coming in during budget season when we're all trying to develop our budgets.
I would guess the timeline should be shorter rather than longer. I mean, 5 years would be a long time for a beginning organization. I mean, relatively beginning organization. So
You're
Yeah.
correct. You're absolutely correct. So
maybe a
an
year.
annual is
Yeah.
probably more for this size county. And there were 15,000 people in.
Yeah,
in-
it's starting out anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I just wanted to say regarding the charging, I think it's very important just in our time here and seeing some of the statistics. We as the governance and ops board absolutely need to identify what constitutes certain nature codes. So what is the definition of an area check? What is the definition of suspicious person? We need to make those identifications because that is what some of the statistics are showing are higher in call volume for certain agencies, but not for others. So I think it's important that we identify what those definitions are first, and then decide how it is that you want to be charged, whether that's, I think Chief Stoyles suggested personnel instead of airtime, different ways to charge. But I think it's important to identify that because that does play into the personnel effect. Because if you have 50 people and all 50 of them are doing the area check, are we charging by the personnel doing the area check, or are we charging by the area check? So there's a lot to all of that, and I think it needs to be identified as well prior to us making those decisions.
It really should be uniform across all.
Absolutely.
So,
Whether the ops board decides this is what we're going to do as the definition, and then give it to the governance, and then you make those types of determination, because it all really does play into together, since it's based off the personnel doing those types of nature calls.
you think you'd be willing to sort of draft a
Absolutely.
plan as far as definitions
I
and
think the ops board, we
value
can work
and-
together on that.
And Mr. Chair, I think that subcommittee that we were talking
Yes.
about can really be that place to flush a lot of this
Yes.
stuff out.
Right.
We'll probably start meeting pretty regularly once we
Okay.
get that thing going, because I think, it's going to take a couple hours
right.
over multiple months probably to really define some of this stuff.
Right.
So, but I think that's the best place to flush out some of those questions and definitions.
Yeah, I was just starting kickstarted, as far as
No, and
where that meeting begins. I mean, to have some
Oh, yeah.
idea of
Yes.
what the key points are and what's going to be
Absolutely.
addressed.
What we're looking at now, what the definition is now, what the CAD recommends right now, all
Yeah.
that stuff. We can look at some different metrics and just kind of have ballpark numbers that we can
Yeah.
quickly start adjusting in the middle of a meeting, things of that nature. So we can have that all prepped for that first kickoff meeting. Yes, sir.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
And
Yes.
real quick,
Yeah.
can I add too, Mr. Chair
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
board? We're also going to be implementing EPD soon, and that's going to change the nature code types. It'll be a lot more fluent. So that'll also help with the statistics as well.
What's EPD?
It's the emergency police dispatch. So it's a standardized questions for each set of, like a domestic. We have specific questions we ask, and that's how the call gets created. So it's kind of going to change the stats just a little bit, but it'll make it more standardized across the board.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Chief.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. Thank you. So I'm probably one of the longest serving members that had the opportunity to be on the former board and now the current board. In my time, nothing's getting cheaper. The budgets just keep getting more and more. We're forced to call for service. Someone needs to process that call. We're not even talking about some of our loose equipment. Radios are now $10,000 that we have in our own budget. So nothing's getting cheaper. And I just want to reemphasize that it's this dispatch center, even though we have 2 PSAPs in Sandoval County, I pride myself in trying to make this the best PSAP. But I think we need to have the discussion. We have a commissioner here. I know we don't want an increase in taxes. No one wants an increase in taxes, but I think we need to at least start talking about how do we maybe go and maybe try to float a bond for communication tax to offset all of our budgets. It's budget time in Corrales. I'm looking at the mayor, our manager was here, you know, they're tight, right? So I just don't know, or we have to think outside the box on how we're going to try to offset some of our costs moving forward. Just a recommendation, suggestion. I know it's a sensitive subject, but I think we need to have the conversation. So,
No, it's good to be proactive. It's coming.
yeah, and it gets more complicated with that because we're a small little village in a very large county. And so I don't know the effects of floating a bond or a question or increase in tax. I would have to look to the experts to do that. But I think it's time to at least start talking about it. So, and if everything goes well, then we have all the entities that are part of this communication board to help publicize that, to get the voters out there to either support it or not, but at least have the conversation. So
Right.
thank you for the time.
No, good thoughts. And who would discuss this financial prospects and funding? I mean, would it be this board or would it be an ops board or, I think that's a good point.
Mr. Chair, it would actually, that's a governance question. The question of billing is a little bit of both because it comes down to definitions of what calls are and operations in the field
Right.
and how our agencies operate. But as far as the budget itself, that's fully in the wheelhouse of this committee.
Okay. So we should start thinking about this. Any ideas on the chief's suggestions, or should we put it on as an agenda item for the next meeting and have people think about it, or what do you think the best approach might be?
Well, Mr. Chair, I mean, you have to look at what the available options are.
Right.
There is an E911 tax. It's a GRT that the county floats. At this point, right now, it excludes all of the villages and towns. It's just unincorporated area. I mean, that's one area that can be extended across all of the towns and villages and cities in Sandoval County. There are probably some other options. You're not really talking about bonds so much, except for expansion of capital, like expansion of the building and that sort of thing. That typically would be part of our bond package as far as floating that to the public. But since it's a county facility at this point, but the other side, which is you're talking about the operational revenue, how do you offset some of those fees? I think it's very good for every agency to have skin in this game, as far as that goes, as far as paying for the operations. But there is a base cost just for opening up, turning on the lights at any organization and any business. Doesn't matter how many employees you have, that can change a little bit. You have a base number of employees and a base number of equipment and your electric bills and everything else just for operating that business. Everything on top of that is incremental. And there are different ways to approach that. But all of us have GRT, property tax, et cetera. I know most towns, villages use your property tax for debt and use your GRT for operation. So I don't know what everybody's individual tax position is, revenue position. And that would be something you discuss with your staff as well.
Right. It sounds like an issue of, sort of general versus centralized versus individual agencies. I mean, like this is a Sandoval County organization basically. So it seems like Sandoval County is a biggie.
It's not. This is an organization made up of its members. That's one of the problems that we had historically, is that it was operated, the SCREC was operated as if it was a division of Rio Rancho. And that's not what this is. This JPA gives this board authority to make governance decisions, which include budgetary decisions for this agency. Now, we all have people that we answer to, right, boss? Whether that's the public or a commissioner staring at me right now. I'm trying not to look into, scary eyes. But we all have people that we answer to in our budgets that we have to make whole. And that's where some of the charging comes in. I mean, we want it to be predictable, but I also want it to be fair based on the use from your agency, and not subsidizing each other one way or the other. The county feels the same way. So how we go about that is the question that we have to determine over the next year, before we're in budget season next year. I'd like to have this done by the end of this year,
Right.
the calendar year. So as we step in next year, we know what that's going to look like when we're developing our budget.
Yeah, I mean, could you or someone sort of give options as far as, outline options that would help this group make decisions as far as how to deal with the costs that are going to be incrementally increasing over time?
The short answer to that question, Mr. Chair, is yes, we can do that. We'll have our financial advisor look at it on a broader basis to try and develop not only options that the county has with regard to the E911 tax, but also options that you may have. I'm not as familiar with your financial positions as you are. So I have no idea what Town of Bernalillo's options are with regard to operating expenses or DRT imposition or anything like that. But we can develop that. Our financial advisor has
That'd be
extensive
nice.
background in municipal and county government. So we
Right,
can
'cause
take a look at that.
there are a lot of balls in the air, a lot of players, and it's like,
There are, exactly. Thank you.
any other discussion among members? Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Oh.
did have one quick question on is there any carryover that was cost saving in this budget, or maybe it's directed for Director Fox? I'm not sure.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Chief Stoll, we are budgeting approximately 800,000 in carryover money. That 800,000 comes from a combination of things. As you remember, when we separated at first, whatever was in that capital fund came over to the PSECC. That some of that was budgeted, but not all of that was budgeted. And so basically what we have gotten so far this year, we are able to keep the lights on with that 800,000 kind of sitting in the bank, but we are going to need that for next year based on this current budget. And the budget projections, and I was trying to keep that increase to as minimal as I can. That's why I did 4%, which is why we're going to carry over as much of that as we possibly can. Does that answer your question, sir?
So it's pretty much that's already accounted for next
Yes,
budget.
that is correct.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment that Yvonne worked on resolving the 911 issue. And could you tell what the root cause was of that?
Yes, so with the mayor's 911, I'm sorry, Chair, the mayor's issue with his 911 calls, when lines are disrupted underground, it's an anomaly that phone companies don't know why it dials 911 by itself. And that's what was happening with the mayor's phone. And so what we did was first, was it the weather? Sometimes if it rains too much or winds or is windy here, especially in the rural areas, even though Corrales isn't rural, it's not, like in the city, it dials 911. Some lines do that. So what we did was, I asked him a series of questions, which was it windy? Was it rainy that day? Do you have a cordless phone? Because if it's an old cordless phone on a landline, sometimes the battery would call 911 as well because the phone's dying and it just would dial. But what happened is we got a hold of, first of all, we had to make sure your billing was correct. Because what had happened in the past was the previous center saw that the address that was calling in on 911 didn't have a house on it. So they just switched it to the opposite end of with the same numerics. And what they did was they would just look at history. If that house if there was not a home at that address, they would just look at history and say, oh, it's Mr. Hashimoto calling again. This is his correct address, but there was no attempts made, and I don't know what happened or why, but there was no attempts made with Lumen or Motorola to fix the Annie Alley, which is when you call 911, we get the information of your address. So that we got that fixed first, and that was part of the billing. Even though you were getting the bill on our end, it was part of the Annie Alley to get that corrected. So we got that corrected. Then it was still happening because we thought maybe that'll help the situation. They had to go on the back end with the way the calls are routed within Lumen. And it was going through what the tech told us was a bad line that is no longer because it's been there for so long. And so they just diverted the calls to a good line. And that's why they stopped calling, because it wasn't a line that was used so much by older residents or residents that had anything wrong with them. So that's what they ended up doing, and it corrected the issue.
They didn't have to correct your underlying.
No, that was going to be the next, that's why we had them go that route, because I've seen where they've actually had to dig up the line and quote unquote kill the line. And so I was hoping it wouldn't have to be that, and it wasn't. So it seems to have corrected the issue.
We haven't had any for the last 3 weeks, so.
I know. Yes.
Police calling up and say, "Are you okay?"
Or showing up to your house. Yes, we're glad.
Any other discussion items? Next item, next board meeting, when should that be? Eric?
Mr. Chairman, just because this was a preliminary budget, and again, I believe that we're pretty close to it, but I'll know a little bit better of the carryover money, stuff like that. Probably, I think we start closing out our stuff mid-May. So maybe late May, early June would be a final kind of, we could just do a general update. We could do an ops board meeting then too, another governance meeting, and just a final, one more discussion of the budget should anyone need anything. But I can pretty much commit that I don't think your numbers are going to change. If there's major, or if there's some small changes here and there, we'll change that in more of the operating expenses, not necessarily. Let me rephrase that. We'll reduce some of the other expenses throughout the budget if we need to not really impact you guys. However, I still want to make sure I present that final budget to you. So I'm thinking late May, early June timeframe.
Like May 21, or, because I'm going to be out of town first week in June.
Okay.
May 28, would that be okay?
Actually, and Mr. Chairman, I have on my calendar that we actually already have an operations meeting that day.
Oh,
On the 28th.
okay.
So the operations meeting is from 8 to noon. It's currently on the schedule. So would you want to do it before
10 to noon.
o'clock? I'm sorry.
I have it
from
10 to noon.
I'm sorry. From 10 to noon. Would you want to do it before 10 o'clock, or before the operations meeting, or in the afternoon?
What would be your all preference? I mean, we
We could do a 9 a.m. I don't know if the governance meeting would go terribly long that morning. You want to do like a 9 a.m. and then we could go straight into the ops meeting?
Yeah, that's fine with me. Just make it convenient for people who
Yep.
travel. I mean,
Yeah, that works for me.
okay. Why don't we make it 9 a.m. then
Okay.
on the 28th?
We will make sure we get that invite. Yvonne, yes, Amber, yes. We'll get that invite out to everyone.
Good. Okay, that sounds fine. Thank you. Lacking any more business items,
Just give me a minute. Yeah.
this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming, y'all.
So remember the day, Chris?
Yeah. I see what you said.
Remember one time, I don't remember you were working that night. I was working, this lady was going down. I-25. Back then it was a giant.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Pull her over. She was drunk. I think she was drunk because I did.
Right, we
50
changed it
her.
to the 20.
She was a stripper, dude.
That's right. The
And
ops
I'll-
meeting
I'll-
is at
like,
10.
yeah.
I remember, yeah.
We're doing.
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
At 9.
They always came out for that.
Thank you all very much.
Then government is this meeting
It's nice to meet
at
you.
9 a.m. on the.
It is
16th.
sounds complicated.
Same. Yeah, it's just gonna run into each other. Yeah, and so what I'll do is I'll just use the same Zoom link that we're doing for the ops.
Thank you.
Because since you already have that, the ops meeting is at 10. starts at 10 and the governance is at 9. So I'll just use that same, since it's the same date. Instead, yeah, and we'll just run it through. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
He said that we started at 11 on that. I mean, we started at,
But.
I thought we started at 10 on that day. We did. Oh, I think he thought we started at 11. That's what he's saying. Right, either way, but he thought we started at 11 and not. We started at 10, so maybe just, let me know.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the 17th, I'll have to see who was here. Bernalillo. Yeah. Mhm. This is, sometimes like this. What is, yeah. What is.
So not incorporated for the cities. We'd have to, it'd have to be real strict.
Oh, no, it's starting to rise oddly. I see it already. I can see it on it. Game of Heart prizes.
Yep.
Can't use it for that.
Casino class.
Right.
Well, he's a cat, and that's the thing, is, you guys.
Chair is Jordan Waddle. Yeah.
Right.
That's a decision.
Yes, because we sold it to our taxpayers.
All that see it doesn't seem like it falls under a corporate entity to vote for the tribe. Overall, the tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's here that day though. I don't remember.
I'll triple your budget.
Yeah.
We have to do this.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I get it. I just want it to be fair and come up with a systematic way we're gonna bill everybody and it's open, deal.
What did Rio Grande, how did they do it?
It's
Literally buy a new airtime. So anytime if you were on radio, there were.
You have the video on YouTube? I'll go back and I'll look at it and I'll tell you.
And then just factor in fire as well. I'm just curious. And see, that's the problem because
Anna was.
I'm not
It's just-
living to us. Our fire department does. They want to bump the calls. I get it. But the problem is
But
you just
I'll
kind
double
of go and create those calls because you're trying to
Yeah,
create
but I'm pretty
numbers.
sure that's-
But really you're hurting me because I'm the one paying out the dispatch.
You guys do fire.
Just saying, yeah.
You guys do fire.
Yeah.
See, we don't have fire. Fires, fire. Yeah.
Right.
And they could come because we.
But you know what I'm saying? Sometimes we want to bounce their numbers, so,
And get revenue on there because it's not easy. You're trying to run all these residents on very little. We're trying.
Mhm.
to cover
Exactly.
With what we have.